Hello, this is Betting Television News Roundup, a compilation of major stories in the weekend. And I'm Tunde Alabi. Thank you for being part of the program today. UK Prime Minister Theresa May has announced that 1.4 million children are currently in good or outstanding schools in Britain due to government effective policy on education. Mrs. May said that government is determined to ensure that young people get as far as their talents can take them. She disclosed this during the Prime Minister's question time, where Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn asked for clarifications on the government's new policy on grammar schools.
I want to congratulate the Prime Minister. She has brought about unity of Ofsted and the teaching unions. She's united former education secretaries on both sides of the House. She's truly brought about a new era of unity in education thinking. I wonder if it's possible for her this morning, within the quiet confines of this House, to name any educational experts that back her proposals on new grammar schools and more selection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, may I join the Right Honourable Gentleman in paying tribute to the police constable who was stabbed in Knowsley. One of the events that I used to look forward to going to every year as Home Secretary was the Police Bravery Awards, because at that event we saw police officers who never know when they start their shift what is going to happen to them. They run towards danger when other people would run away from it, and we owe them a great tribute and our gratitude for that. Now, I'm glad that the Right Honourable Gentleman has raised the issue of education, because it enables me to point out that over the last 6 years we have seen 1.4 million more children in good or outstanding schools. That's because of the changes that this government introduced. It's because of the free schools, the academies, head teachers being put in charge of schools, more choice for parents, changes which I note, all of which the Right Honourable Gentleman opposes. So what I want to see is more good school places, a diversity of provision of education in this country, so that we really see opportunity for all and young people going as far as their talents will take them.
Mr. Speaker, I asked the Prime Minister if she could name any experts that could help her in this policy, and sadly she wasn't able to. So can I quote one expert at her? His name is John, and he's a teacher. And he wrote to me and said, the education system and teachers have made great strides forward to improve quality and delivery of the curriculum. And he says, why not fund all schools properly and let us do the job? The evidence, Mr. Speaker, of the effects of selection is this. In Kent, which has a grammar school system, 27% of the pupils on free school meals get 5 good GCSEs, compared with 45% in London. We're all for spreading good practice, but why does the Prime Minister want to expand a system that can only let children down?
Can I say to the Right Honourable Gentleman that he needs to stop casting his mind back to the 1950s. What we will be doing is ensuring that we are able to provide good school places for the 1.25 million children who are in schools that are failing, inadequate or need improvement. Those children and the parents of those children know they are not getting the education that is right for them and the opportunities that they need. And when we look at the impact of grammar schools, if you look at attainment for disadvantaged and non-disadvantaged children, the attainment gap in grammar schools is virtually zero, which it isn't in other schools. It's opportunity for young people to go where their talents will take them. And I know that the Right Honourable Gentleman believes in equality. The Right Honourable Gentleman believes in equality of outcome. I believe in equality of opportunity. He believes in levelling down. We believe in levelling up.
Mr. Speaker, equality Mr. Speaker, equality of opportunity is not segregating children at the age of 11. So let me quote the Institute of Fiscal Studies, which says those in selected areas who don't pass the 11 plus do worse than they would have done in a comprehensive system. The Secretary of State for Education suggested on Monday that new grammar schools may be required to set up feeder primary schools in poorer areas. Will the children in these feeder primaries get automatic places in the grammar school, or will they be subject to selection?
What we are doing is setting up a more diverse education system that provides more opportunities. And what the Right Honourable Gentleman appears to be defending is the situation we have at the moment, where there is selection in our school system, but it's selection by house price. I think we want to ensure that children have the ability to go where their talents take them. And can I just gently remind the Right Honourable Gentleman, he went to a grammar school, I went to a grammar school. It's what got us where we are today. But my side might be rather happier about that than his.
Mr. Speaker, the two things the Prime Minister and I have in common is we can both remember the 1950s and we can both remember going to a grammar school. My point is simply this. Every child should have the best possible education they can have. We don't need and never should divide children at the age of 11, a life-changing division where the majority end up losing out. I noticed she didn't answer my question about feeder primary schools. On Monday, the Secretary of State for Education said we've not engaged much in the reform of grammars. But the government would now start the process. Can the Prime Minister confirm whether existing grammar schools, like those in Kent and Buckinghamshire, will now be instructed to widen their admission policies by her government?
The Right Honourable Gentleman is right that what we're looking and consulting on is a diversity of provision in education. We want to make sure that all grammar schools actually do the job that we believe is important, which is providing opportunities for a wide range of pupils. And there are many examples across the country of different ways in which that's done through selective education. But he talks about the education, good education for every child. That is exactly what our policy is about. There are 1.25 million children today who are in schools that are not good or outstanding. There are parents today who fear that their children are not getting the good education to enable them to get on in life. I believe in the education that is right for every child. It is the Labour Party that has stifled opportunity, stifled ambition in this country. It is the Labour Party that is willing, members of the Labour Party, who will take the advantages of a good education for themselves and pull up the ladder behind them for other people.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry that the Prime Minister was unable to help anyone in Kent or Buckinghamshire in the answer to my question, and presumably she will have to return to it. But it's not about pulling up ladders, it's about providing a ladder for every child. And let me quote her, a critic of grammar schools. There is a kind of hopelessness about the demand to bring back grammars, an assumption that this country will only ever be able to offer a decent education to a select few. And the quote goes on to say, I want the Conservative Party to rise above that attitude. Not my words, those of the former Right Honourable Member for Witney. Isn't he correct that what we need is investment in all of our schools, a good school for every child, not this selection at the age of 11.
What we need is a good school for every child, and that's precisely what we will be delivering with the policy that we've announced. And with that policy, we will see We will see universities expanding their support for schools. We'll see more faith schools being set up. We'll see independent schools increasing their support for schools in the state sector. A diversity of provision of education is what we need to ensure good school places for every child. And that good school place is important so young people can take opportunities and get into the workplace. And I think this is the Right Honourable Gentleman's fifth question. He hasn't yet welcomed the employment figures today. More people in work than ever before, wages rising above inflation, that's more people with a pay packet, more money in those pay packets. What would Labour offer? More taxation and misery for working families. It's only the Conservative Party that knows you can only build an economy that works for everyone when everyone has an opportunity for work.
Mr. Speaker, of course I welcome anyone that's managed to get a job. I welcome those people that have managed to get jobs and keep themselves and their families together. The problem is that there are now almost 1 million of them on 0 hours contracts who do not know what they're going to be paid from one week to the other. And in order to help her with the expertise on the reform of secondary schools, could I quote to her Michael Wilshaw, the Chief Inspector of Schools, who said quite simply this: the notion that the poor stand to benefit from the return of grammar schools strikes me as quite palpable tosh and nonsense. Isn't all this proof that the Conservative Party's Green Paper addresses none of the actual crises facing our school system? A real terms cut in schools' budget, 500,000 pupils in supersized classes, a crisis in teacher recruitment and retention, rising number of unqualified teachers in classrooms, vital teaching assistants losing their jobs. Isn't this the case of a government heading backwards to a failed segregation for the few and second-class schooling for the many? Can't we do better than this?
The United States is bracing up for possible cyber attacks in November presidential election following a series of recent hacking of US's programs by Russia hackers. The US has called on the top officials to be prepared for cyber attacks that are capable of affecting election materials in November.
Hacked emails at the Democratic National Committee, hacked voter registration systems in Illinois and Arizona, Russia suspected in both. At an Armed Services Committee hearing Tuesday, Senator John McCain wondered if November's election might be next.
Is there a possible scenario where they could disrupt the voting results in the upcoming election?
I think there are scenarios where you could see capability applied in particular areas.
Admiral Michael Rogers, the head of U.S. Cyber Command, said a widespread attack would be hard to do because voting machines and procedures vary widely among the 10,000 jurisdictions across the country. And state officials work hard to keep voter rolls and voting machines out of the hands of hackers and old-fashioned vote riggers. That was the message across Capitol Hill at a House Science Committee hearing. Tom Shedler is Louisiana's Secretary of State.
Are we concerned about potential interference into our election process? We absolutely are. But voter fraud is much, much harder to accomplish than you may think.
Shedler said Louisiana voting machines never touch the Internet. Data cards are physically carried to headquarters, and vote tallies are transmitted on a closed circuit, not online. But there are other ways to attack a computer besides the Internet. Think Stuxnet, the virus that damaged an Iranian nuclear facility, said Rice University computer science professor Dan Wallach.
That nuclear refinement facility was also meant to be secure. It also was not connected to the Internet. Yet somehow this Stuxnet malware was able to do its job.
And he said the decentralized U.S. election system only offers partial protection.
And they need not attack every county in every state. It's sufficient for them to go after battleground states where a small nudge can have a large impact.
But Shedler said the threat of hacking has been exaggerated, but the threat alone may be damaging.
But in recent weeks, reports on cyber attacks have voters questioning whether their vote will actually count. And that, in my opinion, is more damaging than the potential for hacking.
Ultimately, a paper ballot backup is the best protection against tampering, experts say. 3/4 of this year's votes will leave a paper trail. More states are looking into paper backups, but they will not be ready in the 2 months before the election.
The efforts of Nigerian doctors and government to contain the spread of the deadly Ebola disease when it broke out in 2014 have found their ways into a real-life experience put together by Nigerian Hollywood filmmakers. Nigeria was able to contain Ebola in a matter of months with few casualties compared to other African countries like Liberia and Sierra Leone.
It was a grim moment when the Ebola virus arrived in Lagos, a city of more than 20 million people. Spread through contact with bodily fluids, the virus posed an extreme danger in a city where everything from living to working to taking the bus is done in jam-packed conditions. The Nigerian docudrama 93 Days chronicles the desperate days when doctors and public health officials worked to halt the virus before it could spread across Africa's most populous country. They succeeded. Ebola killed 8 people in Nigeria, a tiny fraction of the more than 11,000 the virus killed across the region. Producer Bolanle Austin Peters says the movie shows a proud moment in Nigerian history.
It's a success story. It's a story of how Nigerians came together to fight this dreadful disease. And very rarely do we have this kind of beautiful story being told about ourselves.
The movie was filmed in the same neighborhoods and at some of the same clinics used to treat patients during the outbreak. That allowed the filmmakers to recreate a unique level of reality in the movie.
Some of the doctors were actually there and they were acting as consultants on the movie, so that was really good. So we were saying, did we get this right? Was this how it happened? I remember when we did the spraying of the blood, we shot that about 20 times. It was till we got it right, and the doctors kept saying, no, that wasn't how it was, this was how it was.
Besides being Africa's largest city, Lagos is an international transportation hub. If the outbreak wasn't swiftly tamped down, many feared it could spread from Lagos globally. Nigerian health authorities collaborated with organizations like the World Health Organization and the U.S. Centers for Disease Control to contain the outbreak. Director Steve Gukas says he hopes viewers will take away the lesson that no country stands alone.
We need to actually pay more attention, take more interest when things happen around the world, and do more to help stop things when they start out burning in different parts of the world. That we need to care more, we need to collaborate more, because the truth is the way Nigeria was able to defeat Ebola was through shared collaboration. And it wasn't just collaboration of Nigerians.
The movie premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival this month. Gukas says he hopes to distribute 93 Days internationally.
UK Independent Anti-Slavery Commissioner Kevin Ireland has said Nigeria has consistently remained in the top 3 of human traffickers to the UK. The UK Anti-Slavery Agency disclosed this earlier on a program where he said that the UK government is making efforts to work with Nigerian communities in Nigeria and in the UK to highlight the dangers and illegality of human trafficking to the UK and Europe, in most cases for sexual exploitation.
To the UK, Nigeria's always continuously, over the recent years, been in the top 3 countries of trafficking. The others, the top 3. The others are, Albania, Romania, Vietnam, and Poland. So if we look at the top 5 in total, and I visited all of those countries now, I want to work with those countries really to find prevention opportunities. And if you look recently, there was a case only in the last couple of months where it resulted in a Nigerian national being convicted who was smuggling people and trafficking people through Heathrow Airport. Now, she received 22 years imprisonment, and she trafficked as many as 40 young girls into the UK, into London, for sexual exploitation. But also, there have been occasions when the UK authorities have got it wrong. There was a young girl, 14 years of age, who was trafficked into London through Heathrow Airport and was taken to an East London address where she was sold for sex, she was raped, she was treated really badly. And then when she was being sold on to be moved to France, the authorities intervened. She had Dutch documents, she couldn't speak Dutch, so they assumed that she was travelling on false documents. The documents were for a 27-year-old adult, and she was arrested and she went to prison as an adult. There was an intervention and she was removed from the prison, but only after being there for some time, and she gave her account, and those who exploited her were arrested. So, you know, the authorities here need to get it right as well. We can't be punishing people who are victims. The other thing with Nigeria is obviously the juju ceremonies that take place and the fear that young girls and young women have when they've been subject to a juju ceremony. And when I was in Nigeria, I met with some of the juju priests who have stopped doing these ceremonies.
How does that affect, impact on what they do? Is it like some secrecy, swearing an oath to secrecy?
That's exactly what it is. There's a ceremony, they swear an oath. The fear is if they break that oath, they themselves will die.
Did you say you actually met with some juju priests?
I met with some juju priests who have stopped doing this ceremony on women who are travelling. And what NAPTIP have been doing is working with the juju priests to say to them, you know, stop doing this on women who are trafficking who are travelling, because actually this contributes to their suffering. And there are a number of them who have seen and started to understand that this is not the right thing to do. So by working with NAPTIP and stopping people doing this, we can actually improve the lives of people. But what also we need to do is to start to understand how to work with those who have been subject of these ceremonies, because when they do end up in the UK, they are so fearful of the ceremony. How do we unpick that? How do we work with them so that they begin to realise that it is just you know, a ceremony that's got no basis to it, but they really believe that it's going to happen? And you know, there's been cases where, for example, girls have been locked into coffins as part of the ceremony. Girls have been cut with blades and dust rubbed into their wounds. All kinds of things that really would affect a young girl who's then going to have to travel thousands of miles and then end up in the hands of some madame in the UK who's then going to sell that individual for sexual services and basically for money.
Kevin revealed that Edo State in Nigeria accounts for over 90% of ladies trafficked into Europe for sexual exploitation. He called on faith groups to support the efforts of his agency to stamp out modern-day slavery.
Nigeria has many churches. You know, there's a big representation of Nigerian nationals in the Catholic Church here, and this is a priority for Pope Francis. He has said the trafficking of people and the exploitation of people in this sense is modern-day slavery, and he calls on the international community, not Catholics only, but all people of goodwill, to address this. And I've been working with the Vatican on that. But it's actually the churches, you know, across the Nigerian community of all faiths, Muslim, Catholic, all faiths, need to work together on this and start to saying within their environment, we're not going to have this, we're not going to tolerate this in our society.
A Nigerian woman whose 31.6 kg luggage was lost in transit by Medview Airline when she flew from London Gatwick to Nigeria in July 2016 has been narrating her ordeal and how Medview Airline operators have offered little assistance and support in ensuring that she finds a luggage that contains essential medications and gifts.
13th of July, I traveled with Medview from Gatwick Airport. I checked in 2 luggage, and one was not labeled, and instead of the lady at the desk to tell the baggage handler to bring that luggage back up so that she can label it, she didn't. She just phoned them and said, oh, when you get to Lagos, you will definitely get your luggage.
Were you not there when they were moving the luggage?
I was there. I was there. I think she pushed the wrong button and the luggage just went through.
You
without
called
the
her attention
barcode.
to you that she didn't label the luggage.
I was still there. She was there. I was there in front of her. And she said, don't worry, the luggage will be in Lagos. So in the end, at the boarding gate, I complained, and Mr. Kirit Masrani gave me a barcode and said, when you get to Lagos, if you don't get your luggage, call Blessing or go to our London office. So on
Lagos office.
Lagos office. But at the airport, I was the last person to came out from the airport on that day, around 10 a.m. in the morning. So I went to their office. Blessing was not there. I filled in a form, and they said, oh, there will be Medview on another flight 2 days after. I should come to the airport. I went to the airport, nothing. My uncle here started phoning Mr. Kirit Masrani. He would say, oh, tell her to go to the airport. The next plane, the luggage will be on it. I spent 3 weeks in Lagos, no luggage. I went to Olowu Street to complain.
Which is the Lagos
head office. Okay. I met Mrs. Marian Bankole. She gave me this website.
Which is info@medview.com.
That's her writing.
Okay.
I didn't write this.
Okay.
So she said, oh, madam, go and do it. Tell us all the complaints.
I actually sent email. I called Medview.
Yeah.
They gave me the same email. But the email I sent to info@medviewairlines.com could not deliver.
The same thing.
Bouncing. They kept returning to me.
You
had the same experience?
The same. 21 times. I've got everything here. The server tried to deliver it 21 times. No luck.
No luck.
And since then, I've been calling Medview office here. They said somebody will get in touch with me in 2 hours. Since on the 5th I came back, no one up to now. I've written 3 letters to them, recorded. I've got the proof. It was delivered, signed for. No one up to today.
Would you ever fly any Nigerian airline?
Never, never, never again. Never again in my life, even if it's for £1 per trip. No way. No way.
But
they've really let us down.
As to the on that horrific experience of a Nigerian man who boarded Medview airline, and we conclude the news roundup for this week. Thank you for being part of the program. I am Tunde Alabi. Enjoy the rest of your week. Bye.